So you should be something that says recording started on there.
Yep, it's live.
Yep.
So it's not broadcasting, it's only recording. So I'm John Kraft, Edgar County Watchdogs.
I'm Kirk Allen, Edgar County Watchdogs.
My name is Jeannie Kirby. I'm the clerk for Avon Township.
Well, thanks for joining us, Jeannie. Is that how you want us to address you?
Sure.
Thanks for joining us. We understand there's an issue with the alleged annual township meeting of the electors that occurred a couple weeks ago, and we'd like to get from the beginning a kind of a timeline of, timeline or rundown of the sequence of events that happened leading up to the meeting. So are you prepared to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
I will start with September 1st when they set the town hall meeting, the first town hall meeting. We knew, the trustees knew that there was an issue with the property and that they were asked to resolve the property in a January town hall meeting. And so on the September 1st general meeting, they were concerned about the COVID and how this was going to be legal, because there are guidelines on what a town hall meeting needs to be. And so they set the annual town hall meeting for September 15th. And we started investigating, and that eventually was, we had to cancel that meeting on September 10th. We called the Lake County Health Department to see about if we had permission to hold it, and they stated that it could only be 50 people. There was a discussion about the fact that you cannot limit a town hall meeting. If people come, they have to be admitted. And so they canceled that meeting. Then we set, on September 15th, I walked into my office after 5 o'clock. I usually go in the office at night because of COVID, it's safer. And I discovered on my desk a petition dated September 14th, signed by approximately 20 people to call a town hall meeting for a special town hall meeting for the 24th. Also attached to that petition was an agenda that was for the 24th, called the annual town hall meeting, called on the 24th, and a certificate, a receipt essentially, that it was faxed to a number of different places for that meeting. And the date of the fax was September 9th, that it was faxed, which was interesting because the meeting was not canceled until the evening of, September 10th, not 9th. The meeting wasn't at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we didn't cancel the meeting until 7 o'clock that evening. So it was actually sent before we actually canceled. So for the 24th. So then I immediately sent an email to all the trustees saying that I received this petition on the 15th, and consulted with the attorney, because it did not have 15-day legal notice, because it did not go through the clerk. The clerk is supposed to handle that, not the supervisor. And because we had to vet the signatures, which I eventually did, and I'll tell you about that later. It was advised that it was illegal meeting from our attorney, and so we canceled. I sent a statement to the press and put on the door that the meeting was canceled. It was canceled on September 15th, and on the 16th, I posted it. And I received a notice from Terry Wilkie, and he resent me the petitions with a new stamp date on it. So the original one was stamped the 14th. The second one was stamped the 9th. And you have requested, you FOIA that information, so you have copies of all of that. So on the 19th, I posted a cancellation. On the 20th, I discovered it was taken down. And so on the 23rd, we had a special township meeting that was called. And so on the 23rd, the trustees canceled the meeting. I think that's it in a nutshell. And so
Who controls the stamp? Usually the clerk would make that stamp.
usually the clerk would accept it and stamp it for the date that it was received, or make a note for the date that it was received. But I was not told about it. I did not get an email about it. And of course, there were no red flags because I received it on the 15th. The stamp said the 14th. So I wasn't alerted by that. But usually it's given to the clerk, and there's no email from Terry Wilkie saying that anybody presented the petition or left the petition or put the petition on my desk or any of that.
So you said, did you review the signatures? Did you go to the clerk's office and the county clerk and do that?
I went and asked the county clerk to send me the most updated list of voter registers for the Avon Township. She sent me an electronic list on the 18th, and I did several different checks on all of the signatures, and 11 were verified signatures of registered voters.
So
Does not meet the threshold of 15.
Yeah, so it takes 15.
Yes.
15 electors, which are people registered to vote for at least 28 days prior.
Yes.
In order to call a special township meeting of the
Yes.
electors. And there was you only verified 11 of the signatures.
Right, 11 of the signatures. And how I vetted the signatures, I looked for last name, alternate spellings, street addresses, and even checked for street numbers on a couple that I couldn't find anywhere.
Okay, so I'm holding the petitions stamped September 14 with Terry Wilkie's initials.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that it's a petition for a special township meeting at a place to be determined by the supervisor.
Right.
So, and then later on, there's an agenda. The agenda says it's for an annual town meeting of the electors, not for a special township meeting.
No, and that was what Terry gave me with the petition. So that is what he sent to those numbers that are listed on that receipt. I have no evidence that he actually sent it to the newspaper that requires us to do an electronic submission for all agendas for the Herald, which we do for all of our meetings. I have no evidence that that was done, only that it was sent to those. I do recognize some of those numbers. I'm very diligent about sending our agendas not just to the press, but also to all of our municipality offices, libraries, any place where there's public arena to post meetings, and ask them to post it. Whether they do or not, I don't know. I just do it as a service to the community.
Okay. And it also on the agenda says it's going to happen at the Round Lake High School auditorium.
Yes.
Now, we can discuss that later, but we know that's not where the meeting occurred.
No, not only is that not the meeting occurred, but once he took down the cancellation notice, I was concerned. So I approached the high school, and which I also did on the 15th. When we scheduled the 15th originally, I approached them about the setup, the equipment needed, and all of that, and the potential of over 50. So I contacted the high school again and was told by the superintendent that Terry Wilkie sent him an email on a Friday, and that he responded on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I think it was. And he sent me a copy of the email, which stated that the high school was not going to allow the township to hold the meeting and the auditorium due to the unexpected numbers of people coming and their concerns of meeting the requirements they have to follow for the health concerns. And I believe you ordered a copy of that, so I sent
Yeah.
you a copy of that as well.
Okay, now, did the state's attorney write a letter before or after the second petitions were stamped?
The state's attorney, the letter that I received through a trustee, that wasn't sent to me, it was sent to a trustee who inquired about it, and it's dated September 24th.
So that's after, okay.
So it was the day of the meeting. And it was basically said that it didn't meet the requirements.
So now I'm looking at the same petitions, but a new stamp that says September 9th.
Yes, that was stamped over when I sent an email to all of the elected officials stating the reasons why it was not a legal meeting and that we would have to cancel it. And so he then sent me this this new petition with a new stamp on it.
Are both of these your stamps?
No, none of those are my stamps. They are both Terry Wilkie stamps.
Do you know if the letter from the state's attorney, was that provided to him?
According to the state's attorney, the letter says to Terry Wilkie and it has the date. I'm assuming that meant he got it.
Okay, so here's the state's attorney's letter. And it gives a background and it talks about the signatures allegedly filed on the 14th and then backdated to September 9th. Well, that's actually what happened. He submitted it, initialed it, received on the 14th, and then he came back, submitted again, received on the 9th.
Yes.
You can't receive one set of petitions on two different days.
Yes.
And it says it has to be signed by at least 15 voters by the township. I'm reading this letter from the state's attorney.
Mhm.
15 voters of the township. You verified the signatures. There were only 11 that you could verify.
Yeah.
And it had to be held no less than 14 days after the petitions were filed in your office.
Yeah.
And they were never filed in your office.
Correct.
No, technically they were never filed in my office. I wasn't even told anybody. I mean, it just showed up at my desk when I arrived at the office after hours. It was after 5 o'clock on the 15th. So I didn't even see it till the 15th.
Right.
Have you
And
handled-
it also has to be published in a newspaper.
Yes, and of course, because I sent all of the documentation to the attorney, and the attorney said that we could not hold the meeting because it was not legal. I did not send that agenda to the press, but Terry Wilkie did on the 10th.
Have you handled the prior annual township meetings or special meetings? Did he follow the procedure during those? Or is this the norm for him?
All of the township meetings have been handled by me. As far as the trustees have called them all, we've not had any that I can recall that were done by petition. The trustees have called special town hall meetings. Like for instance, when we discovered the issue with the property, we called a special town hall meeting on January 15th, I believe it was. Yes, January 15th. And I can look that up to verify it, but it was in January. Might have been the
Okay.
but the township trustees called that because of the questions of the legal, of how we purchased the property and whether it was legal or not.
They didn't make any decisions at that meeting.
They did not, because the trustees do not run that meeting. We had a moderator, and the moderator ran the meeting, and of course I took the minutes, and it was a very long meeting. There were over 50 people that attended that meeting, and the electors did present a resolution to the trustees to dispose of the property because it wasn't legally purchased.
Did they present a resolution?
Yes, they did, and that resolution was sent to our attorney. I thought, I discovered that the attorney was never sent the resolution when she was hired, and it was brought up as the problem with the property. And so then I sent it to the attorney when I discovered she didn't see it.
So the electors, was it on the agenda to pass a resolution?
No, it was not it was, the property was on the agenda.
But was the electors vote to take
Yeah.
action on passing a resolution on that agenda in January?
Yes, they did. They
To
passed
pass the resolution?
in January.
Was it on the agenda,
The property was on the agenda.
but the resolution was not?
They presented the resolution at that meeting.
Doesn't the resolution have to be on the agenda?
That's a good question for the attorney. We did, because the electors don't run it, we didn't know that was what was happening, but that was on the discussion of the property was on the agenda, and some person presented a resolution that they approached with an attorney, and it was presented and voted on by the electors.
Was the agenda, you said it was a discussion. Is that how it was listed on that agenda, discussion on the property? Did it make reference to taking action?
I don't remember. I can look that up and see. Hold on a second.
And that could be an important catch.
Yes.
If the agenda says it was for discussion and they took action, then they definitely violated the OMA.
Let's see.
How many
It says discussion and possible action, and the meeting was on January 13th.
how many pages was that resolution?
Oh, the pages, it's a few.
So
How much did they recite? What information?
The entire, there was a huge discussion around the property. And the entire document was read to the trustees.
and it just told the trustees to do something with the property.
Yes, and it is on the agenda as property discussion and possible action.
So what did they tell the trustees to do with the property?
They gave them some options to do with the property. Basically said to hire an independent lawyer to handle the disposal of the property, and that they had some options. I think it was mentioned that they could. Let's see. I have the property resolution. Let me refresh my memory really quickly. It is it's only 2 pages long. Oh, cool. The resolution is very legally stated, and it identifies the property and saying that they're to hire an outside lawyer because of improper and invalid action purchasing the property, and cease and desist all activities related to the improvement of the property, and ordered to hire an independent attorney to address the invalid and improper purchase of the property, and urged to seek any and all remedies as to the matter of course. If any,
Was there an appraisal there?
and no, there is no appraisal there
Okay.
of the property.
Okay.
They knew what it was purchased for. They knew there was a discussion on how much money was already put into the property, but basically they said to hire an independent lawyer to dispose of it.
Did he stop all work?
He did stop work. There was a bill that came in afterwards. The board voted not to pay the bill. And it was from a local contractor, a local service, but we investigated it. I investigated it with our bookkeeper, and found out that the work was actually done before the stop notice, before the January 13th. So then we requested it to be paid, and it got paid.
Okay, so the board approved it to be paid.
Yes.
Okay. Now with this new agenda, It says action to ratify township acquisition of the property. The electors don't have the power to ratify the township's acquisition of the property.
It,
I mean, I read the township code this morning, and under the powers listed for the electors, that's not one of their powers is to backdate approval. They don't have the power to backdate the approval of a property purchase. And then it talks about what they did, I believe, at the meeting, and we'll put a link to the video of the meeting in the article, was somehow entered into an intergovernmental agreement to transfer the property to a not-for-profit corporation.
yes.
Can't do that.
Well, that's not an IGA because IGA is between two governments.
Right.
And we'll get to the state law on transfer of property in a minute. So they didn't do the ratify and keep the property or direct the sale of the property or declare the property as surplus or take different direct action, did they?
Yes, no, they did not. The property would have to be declared a surplus, and then the electors can vote to.
Right. So they did none of the other stuff. Correct?
Correct. Not of my knowledge, unless it happened after I left, which I believe I left after the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Was the attorney present for any of this?
Our current attorney was not present for the 13th meeting. And that's why she's just being brought up to speed on this. The attorney was present in our discussion of possible action for it and for the property, and that there were some recommendations made basically on how we can rectify the situation. But the attorney was not present at the 24th meeting. In fact, I called her as soon as I discovered it, and she gave me some direction, but she was shocked as much as any of us at the meeting was being held.
Have you or any of the board members actually highlighted any of these key points or requirements to the supervisor?
Oh, yes. That the attorney has highlighted them. Yes, they've been highlighted.
So he's knowingly gone in conflict with what the law says. Is that a safe statement?
Well, the safe statement is that if everybody has been told, all the trustees and everybody has been told about the legalities of what we have to do for this, but his actions are not meeting what the recommendations were made.
Okay.
So another question. Apparently, the township received a check right after this meeting, and it was deposited.
That's my understanding.
So
I haven't seen the check.
has the township, and I'm reading from the Public Officer Prohibited Activities Act, section 3.1, has the township, prior to any contract relating to the ownership of this property, so before the sale of the property, did the township receive a signed, sworn under oath disclosure on who was purchasing it and who was involved with the new ownership?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because that's also required.
Yes, and when you purchase property, when the township purchases property, not only does it get permission to purchase property, but it has to be signed by the clerk, and I never signed even the purchase for the property, for the deed.
Okay, so now we'll get to the requirements in the township code. So one of the electors' powers, section 3050, under purchase and use of property, is that the electors can make all orders for the purchase, sale, conveyance, or regulation of the township's corporate property.
Mm-hmm.
They can delegate the power to purchase to the township board,
Yes.
not to the supervisor.
Yeah.
The property can be leased to another government body or nonprofit corporation. Notice it doesn't say given away or sold.
Yeah.
And if it's leased, there's some requirements that the nonprofit has to be under a contract with the township, has to allow the township to use the building, and there has to have a public hearing on the lease. None of that ever happened.
No.
So it's not a lease. We know it's not a lease to a nonprofit. Does Avon Cares leasing a township building right now?
Avon Cares is a food pantry, not for profit, that uses our facility to operate out of. And there isn't, and as far as I know, there are no other leases, and they don't have a lease with us either. They
No
say
contract, no lease, nothing.
we haven't approved anything with them. Now,
Who covers the utilities for that operation?
Township.
Well, the Edgar County Watchdogs is a nonprofit. Could we set up an office there in your township and have you guys cover our expenses?
I don't know how to answer that question.
It's rhetorical. That's all right. But
It's not up to the clerk. I know that for a fact.
So I'm asking these questions to get the people watching that are going to watch this knowledge of a little bit behind the scenes. So you have a Avon Cares, which until I brought it up had been revoked by the Secretary of State. Their license to do business. I believe he rectified that by filing his annual report. As a nonprofit, Terry Wilkie, the township supervisor, who's also a county board member, who's also a Lake County Forest Preserve board member by virtue of being a county board member, chairman of the Forest Preserve Finance Committee,
Yes.
and chairman of the Lake County Ethics Committee. He is the director and set up the Avon Cares. And I heard meeting audio or video of him telling the board when they asked questions about it, that it's none of your business. That is my nonprofit. And he wouldn't even tell them how many board members they were. And then he said 5. Well, I FOIA'd all that information from the Secretary of State, and there's only 3. And he's one of them.
Right.
So the township is gifting this nonprofit, and I'm sure they do a good job at providing food to needy families.
Yeah.
We're not questioning that.
It is not our first food pantry that's been in the Avon Township building. Before Terry Wilkie was elected as supervisor, we had another not-for-profit that was run separately from the township food pantry in there, and we did have a contract with them, and they did pay I think it was $1. They pay a minimal fee, which we didn't have any problems doing. But they also took care of all of the refrigerators and all the equipment that was all theirs. And when they left all of that equipment to the Northern Illinois Food Bank. And then Terry came in and developed this Avon Cares food pantry, and all of the assets from the original food pantry were then bestowed onto the Avon Cares food pantry.
Okay, so he does that. Then the township they use space for free. The township pays utilities.
Yes.
He buys a step van with township funds when he shouldn't have, and then gives it over to the Avon Cares.
Let me correct that. The step van he paid for out of his pocket, but then he signed it over to Avon Township. And so Avon Township then took essentially possession of the step van. They paid for all the repairs of the step van, the licensing of the step van, the insurance on the step van. And then he turned over the step van to the not-for-profit. And that did not go through the board, and it was not approved by the board.
But he did it anyway.
He did it anyway.
Okay.
wow,
And there's
that's a piece of work.
like the Nissan Leaf and
Yeah.
and the Chevy Suburban and the electric charging station.
Yeah.
We're not going to discuss any of that
Yes.
right now. We might have another video for that. So it's not. So we've established they're not leasing. The electors did not use their power to lease property. What they did is they allegedly used their power to sell this property to a nonprofit. They didn't give it to the nonprofit, did they?
You talk about the action that was taken on the 24th.
Yeah.
The electors on the 24th, I haven't seen any minutes, tape recordings. I have requested the tape recording of the meeting from Terry Wilkie because I have a FOIA for it, so I have to ask him for it since I didn't take it. And I have not seen any of the transactions, but they did, according to me being present, not seeing the minutes, or they did accept the retroactive purchase of the property first, and then they voted to sell the property to Avon Cares Food Pantry for $9,000 was the amount that was given at the meeting. And they did that at this.
So they sold it. They didn't give it.
They sold it. They didn't give
Was
it.
there
Okay,
any appraisal ever made on it?
I did not see any paperwork for the appraisal. The only paperwork that was presented at the table when people walked in was the proposal for Avon Cares. That's the only document I saw. There was no appraisal.
Was that an actual resolution?
It's not. It was just made really a statement.
Well, because it has to be a resolution. So let's cover gifting, because some people might not know that a township can give property to a nonprofit. So first, that has to be declared surplus, and you said they didn't do that. So if they wanted to give it, which they didn't do, they could donate it to a historical society or a nonprofit by resolution of the town board of trustees. So no matter what they do, the board of trustees did not do a resolution.
Yeah.
That stated there that nonprofits intended use of the property or anything else. Now to sell it as a whole other page of requirements, the electors can make the orders to delegate the power to purchase or sell. Before a township makes a lease or sale of township or road district property, the electors shall either delegate the power to the town board. They didn't do that, did they?
No, they didn't. There on the 13th meeting, there was an agenda item to have them vote to give the power to the township board to buy to purchase property, but because of the nature of the discussion, Terry Wilkie said that he wasn't going to bring it up because obviously the town hall has already spoken, essentially is what he said. So
okay, or the electors shall adopt a resolution stating the intent, describe the property in full, the terms and conditions that they deem necessary. A resolution stating intent to sell real property shall contain the size, use, zoning of the property, the value of real property as determined by a state licensed real estate appraiser, and the appraiser shall be available for public inspection. The resolution directing the sale can be conducted by the staff of the township, directing the sale to be conducted by the staff of the township, or by listing with a licensed real estate agent. Now, this doesn't say directing the sale to one individual nonprofit. This is a sale that also
It would apply to any sale,
yeah.
no matter who the buyer is.
So you said there was no appraisal, so that sale's invalid. Even if everything else was done properly, the sale's invalid because there was no appraisal. And I believe, is it municipalities or is it townships, Kirk, that that you can only sell something for no less than 80% of the appraised value. Is that a municipality? Is it?
I think it's in the municipal code, but I'd have to double check. But regardless, without the appraisal wasn't made available to the public, and that's a requirement in this.
At least on it, yeah, there was some information given in the 13th meeting about what they appraised what the county appraised the property at when it was put on.
That's what it's,
Yeah, and so when it was put in the book as a potential sale of property that has back taxes or.
that's an assessment.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter what. Yeah, this.
So, but anything official, no, and not anything that I can recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other part of that, the resolution that they don't have, that's supposed to be published by you, the clerk, once in a newspaper, published in the township. So without the appraisal, I mean, they've got several steps that weren't complied with, but the appraisal is the big one.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to note that our current attorneys was actually recommended to the board when we were looking at the independent attorney for the property. And when this original transaction happened, our current attorney firm, Ansel Glink, was not employed or not the attorney for the township at that time.
All right.
All of the legal information that should have been told and discussed at a township meeting with the trustees first and given a legal opinion on the steps in order to purchase property, those did not happen according to my recollection of all the meetings.
All right. So one other thing that I want to discuss, I mean, you don't have to comment on this. Well, you can if you want. Is forgery. And I go back to the petitions that were turned in one time with one stamp and then turned in with an earlier stamp. And forgery, is listed in the criminal code. When somebody falsifies a document or alters it to make it false, and it's capable of defrauding another, which is capable of defrauding everybody in the township, because it was put forth fraudulently to give it enough time to hold a township meeting, which didn't happen. And if a person issues or delivers the document that they made or altered, possess it with the intent or to deliver, knowing it's made or altered, it's against the law to do that. And people think, well, forgery is just me signing somebody else's name. No, that's creating a document, knowing it's false, and presenting it as a good document that's not false, which, in my opinion, is what that second set of petitions did.
Absolutely.
With the other date on it, date received. You can comment or not.
I can comment that I received the first one with one date and received a second copy after I alerted that it was not sufficient time with another date.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would suggest whoever had filed a criminal complaint include an allegation of potential forgery, because that petition definitely would fall into that category under the criminal code.
So, anything else you want to talk about on camera?
I'm, just trying to do the best for our township residents and do what the township government is supposed to do. And
right. And if the township board doesn't want the property, then there's a legal way to get rid of it. It's in the statute, and they can't do it the way they did, basically.
Yeah, I don't think if you look at all the minutes, the township was not aware of the sale of the property until after the property was bought. Or so that we purchased the property until after it was purchased. And so there was no option for them to discuss the legal guidelines on how we can do that or what. There was a a discussion about a potential of this, and there were many members of the board that felt that partnering with Habitat for Humanity was a good thing, and how we can work with them in order to assist and bring them into Round Lake so that Habitat for Humanity had some rehab possibilities within Round Lake. And so that discussion was no direction, no clear understanding, just, oh, this is really interesting. We could, just that.
Who did they buy the property from?
Terry Wilkie bought the property from Lake County.
Tax
From the
sale.
county. So it was a tax sale.
Yes.
Okay.
And he purchased the property for $1, and there was a $10 fee, and then we had to pay the taxes.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop recording.